I'm delighted to be here at the 2018 Ogun State Investors Forum. When we last gathered here for this forum 2 years ago, Nigeria was slipping into its worst recession in decades after a dramatic fall in the price of crude oil. Dollar shortages hit businesses and manufacturers reeling. Inflation rose and unrest in the Niger Delta drove down our oil output. Between then and now, we have launched and implemented a comprehensive economic recovery and growth plan. We've pursued peace in the Niger Delta. We've focused on improving our business environment. We scaled up our investment in agriculture and infrastructure, and aggressively worked on expanding Nigeria's revenue base. The ultimate goal has been the diversification of the economy, away from the kind of unhealthy dependence on oil and gas revenues that led us to the dire straits in which we found ourselves. We were also zealous about reversing the trend of underinvestment in infrastructure that had characterized our recent history. But perhaps most importantly, we have reversed the grand corruption in public finance and the impunity which attended the conduct of public business, especially in the past 5 years. Yesterday, at the Quarterly Business Forum, I said that the main reason for Nigeria's recursive growth is not just a matter of our relying heavily on a single commodity. It is the fact that proceeds of that single commodity were regularly hijacked consistently by a few. The most of those proceeds go to rent seekers who invest little in industry and who invest little in production. So for example, in a so-called strategic alliance contract with the NDPC, the promoters of the companies made away with over $3 billion, almost a tenth of our reserves at a point. Now here's a list of possible roads that $3 billion would have built. And at the moment, we're in the course of getting that $3 billion to build these roads that I'm about to name. The Abuja-Kaduna Road, the second Niger Bridge, the Enugu-Port Harcourt Road, the East-West Road, the Shagamu-Ore-Benin Road, the Kano-Maiduguri Road, the Abuja-Lafia-Akwanga-Kefi Road, plus the Lagos-Abeokuta Road, the old one. That's what $3 billion that some people made away with could have done. And that's why it's important for us to understand that our country's problems must be analyzed from the perspective of what our real issues are. We can't talk of the Nigerian economy without talking about the blight that was caused years ago by people simply stealing the resources of this country. In one single transaction, the sum of 100 billion naira and $289 million in cash were released 3 weeks to the 2015 elections. When you consider, that release of course was money that was essentially embezzled. When you consider that in 2014, when oil prices were at an average of $110 a barrel, only 99 billion naira was spent on power, works, and housing. Those three ministries put together. Agriculture and transportation got 14 and $15 billion naira, beg your pardon, respectively. So the total spend on capital in 2014 on those areas I've mentioned was 153 billion naira. And over 150 billion was released and shared in 3 days. So this is the enormity of what we're talking about. It's the enormity of what we're talking about. There is no country in the world that can survive on grand corruption on the scale that we were talking about. And that is why it's important for the federal government of Nigeria under President Muhammadu Buhari to reverse that grand corruption. So we spent in 2017 $1.3 trillion on capital, the highest spend in the history of the country. Earning almost 60% less than we were earning in 2014. We're able to spend that on capital. So you can do far more with less if we're prudent with the resources of this country. Today, with less revenue and no leakage, we've even increased funding capital in power works and housing, in defense, in transport and infrastructure, and agriculture, beg your pardon, by as much as 400%. Today, we are 2 quarters out of the recession and firmly on the path of recovery. Our external reserves are at their highest levels in 5 years. Inflation has dropped for 13 consecutive months. Manufacturing confidence is on the rise. And in 2017, Nigeria moved, as you heard, 24 places on the World Bank's annual ease of doing business index. And the World Bank reported that Nigeria is among the top 10 reforming economies in the world. All who are present here today can therefore see why this is a great time to speak confidently about consolidating gains and accelerating growth. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I see strong similarities, as I'm sure you do, between our ambitions at the federal level and those of Ogun State in terms of the commitment to raising domestic revenues, attracting investment, and the emphasis on infrastructure, agriculture, industrialization, and technology. Ogun State has seen a tenfold increase in internally generated revenues between 2011 and today. I'm also told that a significant portion of the foreign direct investment that came into Nigeria between 2016 and 2017 actually ended up here in Ogun State. And it is not difficult to see why. Between 2011 and today, the state has moved up from 35th place on Nigeria's sub-national ease of doing business index all the way to the 5th place. And Ogun State's claim to the title of Industrial Hub of Nigeria is more than mere rhetoric. I was here in December 2017 to commission the largest petroleum tank farm in Nigeria, the Petrolex project, which includes a refinery in its plan. And again, just last month, we commissioned a new Nestle factory and a Biloxi biscuit factory, all here in Ogun State. These are only a few of the industrial facilities that have opened up here in recent years. In the past 18 months, the state has also made giant leaps in agriculture and advanced boldly to take on the whole value chain, especially with rice, mid-trust rice, from farm to market. Reforms championed by the state government have touched everything from soft infrastructure, land acquisition, to construction permits, business registration, to hard infrastructure, an ambitious program of road building, road upgrades across the state. And I'm sure that all of us who came here by whatever route today would have seen all of those developments. And the future looks even more promising. Last year, I flagged off here construction of a new standard gauge railway line from Lagos that will run from the port complex in Lagos through Ogun State to Ibadan. One of the terminal sections of a network that will run well over 1,000 kilometers across the country to Kano. We expect that line will be completed by the end of the year. But ahead of that, we are creating an inland terminal at the railway station at Ilugu, this is on the Lagos-Kano narrow gauge railroad, not the standard gauge now. Now Ilugu, for those who do not know, is between Ogun and Oyo states, about 150 kilometers from Apapa. The GE-led consortium through the APM terminal is providing that investment, and they expect that the project will take about 10 weeks. So we'll be able to move freight from Apapa port to Ilugu, and importers will take their freight from there, and the same also for exporters. This will decongest the Apapa port, and of course bring more opportunities to this axis. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, one of the busiest highways in the country, and at the moment the primary land connection between Lagos and the rest of Nigeria, is another infrastructure priority of the federal government. And we expect, now that the contractors are back to site, we expect that that project should move on very quickly. These two transport projects will further boost Ogun's special standing as Nigeria's gateway state and no doubt attract even greater investment and migration to the state. Ogun's status as the home to the largest concentration of tertiary institutions in Nigeria is also a pointer to the size of its potential for youth-driven innovation. One of the practical ways by which the state government can help unleash this potential is in implementing policies that will attract private sector investment into the rollout of broadband across the state. And you can be sure that high-speed internet will be a game-changing proposition for Ogun State's technology ambitions, and many of the young men and women in the tertiary institutions will benefit greatly from improved broadband infrastructure. I must say that it's unlikely that any administration since the birth of this state has developed infrastructure as rapidly and as sure-footedly as the Hamilton administration. The governor and his team certainly deserve the loudest commendation. So I'm here today partly to encourage Dr. Amosu and his administration, and to say to them that there is no room to relent in the efforts to fast-track the growth and development of our state. The successes recorded so far by your mission to rebuild Ogun State ought to inspire even more ambitious reforms now and into the future. The reward for hard work, as they say, is more work. It's heartwarming to note that Ogun State has made clear its aspiration to move from 5th place on Nigeria's Doing Business Index for states to the 1st place. On our part, the federal government, we will continue to do everything within our power to support every state in Nigeria to reach its full economic potential. It is gladdening to note that Ogun has been consistently enthusiastic in its reception of our hand of cooperation. It will be hard. In recent history, I must say that it will be difficult to point to a government that has been more supportive of the development of the ambitions of states as has the Buhari administration. We've been especially attentive and responsive to their needs and wishes, and have treated the state government, regardless of partisan affiliation, as partners and not minions. So far, in terms of support, including the Paris Club refunds, which of course the states were owed, were spent so far 1.91 trillion naira on support to the various states of the Federation of Nigeria. A significant number of our programs and policies have been designed to put the states in mind. Our Anchor Borrowers program that provides cheap credit and input to smallholder farmers. The President's fertilizer initiative that has revived the domestic fertilizer blending industry and delivered cheaper fertilizer to our farmers. Our social investment program, where we're now feeding about 7 million school children in public primary schools in 21 states. The budget support facility, which has enabled states to better cope with the shocks rising from the drop in the price of crude oil, and also the low levels of production for many months, especially in 2016. Let me, in closing, highlight something about what is without doubt one of Ogun State's greatest assets, its proximity to both Lagos State and the Republic of Benin. I am pleased to note that the state government has already begun to prepare for a future in which it will be the norm for people to live in ABEOKUTA or anywhere in Ogun State and commute daily to Lagos for work. I'll even go a step further to say that it should not be difficult to foresee a time when Ogun State will be home to business districts that rival those in Lagos or anywhere else in the world, and when some of Nigeria's busiest air and inland ports will be found right here. Already Ogun State is the industrial hub of the nation, but it must also be the business hub. It must also be the business district of preference, the business district of choice for everyone who wants to do business in Nigeria. It feels almost inevitable that as Lagos grows in the most feasible direction, which of course is upwards, that Ogun State is going to be a very important driver indeed. This proximity between both states and the fact that they will significantly affect each other for good or for ill in the years to come ought to be the starting point for more deliberate economic cooperation between the two states. A few weeks ago, I attended the first joint economic summit between Lagos and Kano states. There is no reason why there should not be a similar collaboration between Lagos and Ogun State for mutual benefit. The closeness to Benin Republic means that Ogun is a potential trade gateway to West Africa and the rest of the continent. This is one potential that must be exploited. And so we must see a sub-regional meeting, a sub-regional summit between Lagos, Benin Republic, and Ogun State. This is the kind of collaboration and cooperation that will take us very quickly to the destinations that we have set for ourselves. The words of the Ogun State anthem, a persuasive call to labor, to service, offer perhaps a fitting end to this address. Ọmọ iṣẹ́ pọ̀ fún wa láti ṣe, iṣẹ́ sì pọ̀ fún wa láti ṣe o, iṣẹ́ pọ̀ púpọ̀ fún wa láti ṣe.